Years ago, a man walked into my gas station covered in blood. 10 minutes later, his hands were around my throat, and I was absolutely certain I was about to die on that filthy convenience store floor. I don't scare easily. I've worked nights. I've dealt with drunks, thieves, people looking for trouble. But the things I'm about to tell you are different. These are the kinds of experiences that don't stay in the past. They wait, quietly, and then crawl back into your mind when the house is dark and the clock reads 2 a.m. My name is David, and at the time, I worked the overnight shift at a gas station sitting alone off a forgotten stretch of highway. No neighborhoods nearby. No foot traffic. Just miles of asphalt and passing headlights. This was before modern security systems, before cameras watched every corner, before panic buttons were standard. Not that my boss would have installed them anyway. He was cheap. Dangerously cheap. Most nights it was just me from 11 p.m. until sunrise. No customers. No music. Just the faint electrical buzz of dying fluorescent lights overhead. If you've never experienced that kind of silence, it does something to your brain. After enough hours, you start feeling like the rest of the world disappeared, like you've been quietly removed from it. And then the door chimed. The sound hit me so suddenly, I nearly jumped out of my skin. I remember thinking, who would be stopping here at this hour? A man stepped inside. Tall. Early 30s. Athletic build. For half a second, my brain tried to categorize him as normal. Familiar. Safe. Then my eyes adjusted. And everything inside me went cold. He was covered in blood. Not a smear. Not a nosebleed. I'm talking about a shocking, almost theatrical amount of blood splattered across his chest, streaked down his forearms, drying along his jawline. My brain scrambled for harmless explanations. Paint? Animal blood? Some kind of construction accident? But deep down, instinct already knew. And then I saw his eyes. What scared me wasn't the blood. It was the emptiness behind them. No panic. No adrenaline. No fear. He looked like a man stopping in for snacks on an ordinary Tuesday. Our eyes locked. I couldn't look away. He noticed me staring and smiled. Then, in the calmest voice imaginable, he said, "Relax. It's not my blood." As if that was supposed to make me feel better. Every alarm inside my body detonated at once. Because if it wasn't his, whose was it? My survival instincts took control. I nodded casually, pretended to read my magazine, acted like this was the most normal thing in the world. Sometimes pretending everything is fine is the only thing that keeps you alive. He wandered the aisle slowly. Unbothered. Almost bored. I kept thinking, don't provoke him. Don't stare. Don't do anything memorable. Eventually, he approached the counter with a few random items. Chips. A soda. Something else I don't even remember because my brain had shifted entirely into threat mode. I rang him up without meeting his gaze. He paid cash. Said nothing. And walked out. The second I heard his engine turn over. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Halfway through describing him to the dispatcher, the door chimed again. My stomach dropped so hard it actually hurt. It was him. And this time, he looked furious. I hung up instantly. Too late. He had already seen me through the window. He stormed toward the counter. "Did you call the cops?" I shook my head. Tried to look confused. But he didn't believe me. His voice rose. His face twisted with rage. And then, before my brain could even process what was happening, he launched himself over the counter. Not climbed. Launched. 1 second he was yelling, the next his hands were around my throat. My vision started narrowing. A loud ringing filled my ears. And I remember thinking, very clearly, this is how people die in places like this. I fought like something feral. Scratching. Kicking. Biting. Anything to create even an inch of space. I could feel the sticky warmth of blood smearing across my shirt. Then, out of pure animal desperation, I screamed, "I have a gun." It was a complete bluff. But something in my voice must have convinced him. He froze, jumped off me, and bolted out the door. Just like that. I lay there shaking, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember how breathing worked. Police arrived minutes later and went looking for him. They never found him. No arrests. No news report. No follow-up. Nothing. To this day, I don't know whose blood that was. And that wasn't the last time something followed me home from that job. You'd think I quit after that. I didn't. That was mistake number one. A few months later, another quiet night, another visitor walked in. But this one felt wrong immediately. He wore a perfectly tailored dark gray suit. At midnight, in the middle of nowhere. People dressed like that don't end up at forgotten gas stations by accident. He didn't browse. Didn't look around. Just walked straight to the counter, reached into his jacket, and placed a photograph in front of me. The air left my lungs. It was the blood-covered man. No doubt. No hesitation. Same empty eyes. In that moment, one thought screamed louder than the others. Don't react. I forced my face blank. He studied me carefully, not casually, but with the focus of someone measuring every micro-expression. Finally, he asked, "Have you seen this man?" Every survival instinct I had said the same thing, deny it. So I did. No silence stretched between us. Thick enough to feel. Then he picked up the photo, turned toward the exit, paused, looked back at me, and said quietly, "I know you're lying." Then he left. But the fear didn't leave with him. Weeks passed. Then I started noticing a silver SUV. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. Across the street. In grocery store parking lots. Sometimes idling near my block. Always distant. Always gone when I tried to focus on it. You tell yourself you're being paranoid, right up until the night paranoia proves justified. 3 weeks later, glass exploded inward in my living room at 2 a.m. I grabbed a bat and ran out. No intruder. No footsteps. Just a rock sitting in shattered glass. No note needed. Message received. I quit the next morning. Moved within the month. Then moved again out of state. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe not. But I've never shaken the feeling that someone was making sure I stayed quiet. The last story is the one that still messes with my head. Even now. 8 months ago, I was driving home from a brutal job site nearly 3 hours away. Exhausted doesn't even begin to describe it. The kind of tired where your eyes close without permission. About 45 minutes into the drive, I realized something dangerous. I was becoming a hazard behind the wheel. So I pulled into a gas station, set an alarm, and slept in my truck. When I woke up an hour later, the lot was empty. No cars. No people. Just that strange early morning stillness. I got back on the highway. 20 minutes passed. Then I heard it. A faint, irregular thumping behind me. Probably tools shifting, I thought. Until it stopped, right after I slammed my hand against the truck in irritation. And that's when unease crept in. Because inanimate objects don't react. I tried to convince myself I was being ridiculous. Then crack. A violent explosion behind my head. I looked in the rearview mirror and nearly wrecked. Someone was standing in my truck bed, swinging one of my tools, trying to smash through the rear glass. I swerved wildly, heart detonating in my chest. Somehow got the truck stopped. Jumped out and saw a hooded figure scrambling over the side and sprinting toward the tree line. For half a second, I considered chasing him. Adrenaline does strange things. But sanity caught up fast. I got back in the truck and drove, hands shaking so badly I could barely steer. Later, when I finally worked up the nerve to inspect the damage, I found something else in the truck bed. A small trash bag, wrapped tight, wet, a rotten smell leaking out of it. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Because some instincts exist for a reason, and every cell in my body was screaming, if you look inside that bag, whatever you see will stay with you forever. So I got rid of it. And as I walked back to the driver's seat, I noticed my hands were smeared red. I never called the police. Never told anyone for weeks. But I know one thing for certain. He climbed into my truck while I slept and lay there silently, for miles. Waiting. People always ask me why I still remember these nights so clearly. The truth is, you don't forget moments when you realize how thin the line is between an ordinary life and something much darker. For a long time, I tried convincing myself these were just isolated incidents. Bad luck. Wrong place. Wrong time. But the older I get, the less certain I feel about that. Because once you've looked into the eyes of someone capable of terrible things, you start noticing how often danger passes quietly through everyday places. Gas stations, parking lots, empty highways, places we barely think about. Even now, I check my back seat before getting into my car. Sometimes I still replay that first night in my head, wondering whose blood covered that man, and whether someone, somewhere, never made it home. Sometimes I wonder who sent the man with the photograph, and what would have happened if I had admitted the truth. But what unsettles me most is the thought that if I hadn't woken up when I did, if I had slept just a little longer, I might never have known someone was lying silently in the back of my truck, waiting. And that realization changes the way you move through the world. I pay attention to vehicles that pass me more than once. I notice when something feels off. Not paranoid, just aware. Because the world is full of ordinary nights that turn into the kind you carry forever. So if you take anything from these stories, let it be this. Trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, it usually is. Stay alert in empty places. Lock your doors. Look behind you once in a while. And if a man ever walks into a quiet store in the middle of the night covered in blood, don't wait to find out whose it is. The frightening thing isn't that these things happened. It's knowing they happen every single day to people who thought they were just living through another normal night. And that realization changes you. Once you've seen how quickly normal can fracture, you stop assuming you're safe. You start understanding that danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it walks in calmly, smiles politely, and waits.